Hey everybody, welcome to Classics You Slept Through, the podcast where we read classic books that maybe you've missed, maybe never got to, but we'll read them to you, and then we'll discuss them together. So my name is Kyle Davis, and I'm along with a girl who has taken a lot of baths but never been to Bath, my sister, Meredith Davis.
Hey.
How's it going, Mare?
It's going pretty good. This evening, late evening.
It is late. It is late.
Kids are
I actually
in bed.
don't take many baths. I'm a shower guy, really.
I enjoy a bath from time to time, like to relax and soak. I don't do it very much anymore because I have like a kid who's like, Mom.
Yeah,
Mom.
that is kind of a problem.
Not relaxing anymore.
Well, we are going to get all into Bath tonight. That is Bath, UK, because we are reading Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen.
And we're reading the first 8 chapters. So we're going to give you a rundown of those chapters, tease them out for you, and then talk about what was going on inside those chapters. So this book actually was Jane Austen's first that she wrote in about 1799, 98. It was done in like 1803, and she sold it to a publisher, and they didn't publish it. And she's a little salty about that at the beginning, where she's got the author's note in here where she thinks it's quite extraordinary that any bookseller should think it worthwhile to purchase what he did not think it worthwhile to publish. Because it wasn't published until what? 1817?
15 years later? Yeah, I think 15 years later.
After she was dead. So
she actually never saw the publication of this book, which is a shame.
But she wrote a few others in the meantime.
That's true, she did. A total of 6, well, I guess 5 in her lifetime. I guess real quickly, for any readers who don't know, who exactly was Jane Austen, and why are we reading her, and why is she important?
Jane Austen is like the Victorian author, which I'm sure is debatable by fans of the Bronte sisters and a bunch of other wonderful authors. But Jane Austen wrote Pride and Prejudice. She wrote Sense and Sensibility. She wrote Northanger Abbey. She was a big deal. She still is a big deal. There's a Jane Austen society that you could join if you like Jane Austen, and they do like cosplay. I don't know if you call it cosplay or reenactment.
Period reenactment or something.
Yeah. But there's a whole Jane Austen society that glorifies Jane Austen and
reveres.
Yeah, reveres.
But from a historical and literary perspective, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't she unique in, I guess, the amount of detail and criticism of social society of this time that was, I guess, unique to the literary canon of that day?
She's so woke. She's I would say her critique of society and her critique of social interaction, super feminist, I think.
I mean, definitely on a relative for the early 1800s scale. Yeah
I think even now sometimes, I mean, we'll see it in this book, the social interactions between men and women and women, it just like is dripping with sarcasm or satire, and she's pointing things out between the lines that you're like, oh God, yes, people do that still. And it's, in my case, I think sometimes absurd the way people treat each other. And we'll see that in this book, especially between the girls or the women.
Yeah, she's pretty fantastic. Like almost every line is dripping with some sarcasm in this book. So,
which I was going to say was my problem early on. I didn't get it, which is why Pride and Prejudice kind of it went over my head, honestly, when I was younger.
Well, I haven't read Pride and Prejudice in a few years, but I guess I'll spoil one of my thoughts from that I was going to say for the wrap, but just in the early part of this, I was comparing this to Marvel movies, right? Like, so Pride and Prejudice, if you think of it's a big Marvel movie. This one feels almost like, in how in the MCU Marvel movies that they are, they're real quippy and they're funny and they're real sarcastic all the time. Well, then you get to like later in the Marvel movies to like Thor Ragnarok, and it's like almost too quippy. Like every line is a joke in that movie. Like nothing is serious. That's almost how I felt reading Northanger Abbey. Like almost every line in this book's in the section we read feels like she's being snarky.
That's interesting because this is her first book. So she herself is quite young. And as she matures as a person and as an author, and we get to Pride and Prejudice and her later works, it becomes more nuanced or shaped more. But this is kind of just like too much. Right. Like, I think of myself as a teenager who was just over it, my existential angst of the world and the posers, and nothing was genuine anymore, and all the preps around me, and I in my Hot Topic gear and my wannabe goth stage, because I was so over the small talk and the fake everything. But then as you get older, as we'll see later on in this book too, there's nuance to. It's in a much later chapter, but there's nuance to something like small talk. Or something.
Yeah.
That we'll see. Yeah.
So she was young. She wrote Northanger Abbey when she was in her early 20s. So yeah, she was young.
And our heroine, if we get into it, is young as well.
Yes.
So in chapter 1, we meet Catherine Morland, who in my mind I just call her Cat. I don't know why. I've just been calling her Cat.
Because she does a lot of through this book.
Does she? And she's an unlikely heroine. And we meet her father and her mother. They don't play a huge part, but her dad's a clergyman. They're not poor. He's got a good living. Her mom had a whole bunch of kids. I love the line we were talking earlier where after she has Catherine, she didn't die in childbirth like you'd expect her to.
Like you'd expect.
She went on to have 6 more children and watch them grow. Like... I guess in novels, perhaps, the moms are always dying in childbirth. It's a lot of bringing them into the world as you head out. But we learn that she's not very pretty most of her life, and she's not very remarkable, and yet here she is. She's going to be our heroine.
Right. So I think this kind of for me got into, and there's a really great example later on. But sort of got into sort of, from a modern perspective, the kind of like, ew, sort of feelings you get reading some of this because, she wasn't hot at 10. Oh, okay. Whoops. Yeah, by 15, she was okay. Like, oh, man, this is kind of, I need to take a bath after reading this.
Yeah. Well, to look at Jane Austen writes at the end, to look almost pretty.
Yes.
Is an acquisition of higher delight to a girl who has been looking plain for the first 15 years of her life than a beauty from her cradle can ever receive.
Like, didn't her dad tell her she was pretty when she was like 7? Like, come on. Oh, it's so sad.
Oh, Cat, you're so plain.
Oh, I know. Everybody's so harsh in this book. It's the good British, honesty with them.
Yeah. Maybe you'll be able to get a good job, but probably not a husband.
No, probably not.
All right, so we meet her, and in chapter 2...
See, now I'm gonna start doing... So it reminds me of, like, in Pride and Prejudice of, who's the friend that married the clergyman, that married Mr. Collins, and she was like, look, this is the best I can do. Don't ruin it for me, She... Oh,
so sad.
Because she was a plain-looking girl.
But
anyway.
when you don't have many other options in life, what are you going to focus on?
Exactly.
Right. So, chapter 2, we head to Bath. Bath is a town so named for the Roman baths that are there in the natural spring waters.
Northern England, correct? I think it's in Northern England.
I know that it is in the county of Somerset.
Oh, very good.
Directionally, I'm not sure where that is. But Jane Austen actually lived in Bath in the early 19th century, hence the location. But I think this was written after her first trip there.
Write what you know, right?
Yeah, she was taken with it. So...
Well, apparently you stay there for some time. And in a lot of these older books, they talk about, a lot of the gout and all these old man diseases from the 1800s. that the weather in Bath is better for you, and so they go there for their health, and they stay there a long time.
Yo, people still get gout. That's a real thing.
I had a coworker who had gout. Yes.
My son's dentist got gout during her pregnancy. Wow. Hope she doesn't listen to this. Sorry, doctor.
HIPAA violation right on our podcast.
But we're both pregnant, and when I went to see her with my son the other day, she's like 20 weeks, and I'm almost there. But I was like, 20 weeks, you're in the sweet spot. Your second trimester. That's great. She's like, no, I'm still sick and I got gout. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You had a different experience, and I am so sorry.
Right.
Okay.
So in your mind, what do you picture? So I don't know. We don't have very many listeners from England. We have had some downloads from the UK. So hey, shout out to our UK listeners. What do you picture when you picture Bath reading this book?
I picture busy streets, lots of societal ladies walking up and down, like a vacation spot, like down the shore.
Yeah, I was picturing like Myrtle Beach, right? Like you got to go to medieval times, and you go to the Grand Ole Opry or the Alabama Theater or whatever we have down there. And then you go to the beach, then you go to this place.
Yeah.
You got to hit up Joe's Crab Shack, and you got to go to, Bubba Gump Shrimp, and they got all the chain restaurants on the boardwalk.
Exactly, like when you go down the shore, because I live in Philly, and that's what you say. You go down the shore, and you have to hit up the boardwalk, and you have to get Manco's pizza. You have to get Coors Brothers ice cream. You have to go get fresh made donuts in the morning or whatever. And depending on the shore point that you are staying at, you do the different things. My wonderful mother-in-law always has dinner reservations, like almost every night.
So where were you going?
Down the shore.
Down the shore?
Down the shore.
Down the shore? I think that's what you meant, right? And then you go swim in the water down the shore?
In the water.
In the water?
I don't know who you're talking to right now.
Hey.
You probably have a more Philadelphia accent than I ever would.
Oh, I don't. It's one of my favorite accents, but it's really tough to do. Anyway.
It is really tough to do.
The Delco accent. Anyway. All right.
Okay. So she's going to Bath with her family friends, the Allens. Her mom and her dad are worried, but, parents worry. So they send her off.
Right.
They send her with a bunch of money. Well, not some money. How much money?
So she was sad that she did not get her £100 note or a unlimited order from the banker. So £100 in modern day times, that would be $12,000. But she gets 10 guineas, which, considerably less, but it's still about $1,000. So they're sending her off to Myrtle Beach with $1,000, saying, "Hey, go have fun for some indeterminate amount of time."
Yeah, I think she's like 17 years old. So they're like, here's $1,000. Go have a good time. We're not coming.
Right. And she's with the Allens, so it's not like she's going to have many expenses anyway, I wouldn't imagine.
Right. Gowns and whatnot. A new hat here and there.
Right.
So they go to a ball, and she doesn't know anyone. Mrs. Allen is bored. She's bored. All Mrs. Allen can do is lament, like, I just wish we had friends here. Wish there was someone to talk to. And it's like, wait, you brought a friend with you on vacation. And
which, if our listeners don't know, that is like the crux of British society at this time, right? It's your connections. It's, do you have good connections? So your reputation hinges on the reputation of all the people you know. And if you know the right people will then introduce you to the other right people, and that will improve your station in life. So everybody's always worried about their personal reputations and who they know. In that sense, it's almost, it's very like Middle Eastern, like it's very relationship based, which I find fascinating, seeing as that us as Americans are very individualistic and we came out of the British tradition. So I think this is just me philosophizing here for a second, but I think our individuality kind of is a counter rejection of this British, everything has to be connected and who you know kind of thing.
Interesting. The whole lament of Mrs. Allen is she wants to know acquaintances when she goes out and see people she knows. And anytime I go out, I'm like, God, I hope I don't see anyone I know.
Exactly.
Nobody talks
I just want
to
to
me.
go out, do what I got to do, get back. I mean, I wouldn't be going to one of these balls anyway, so.
You've been to a ball or two. You have military things.
Yeah, I've been to balls, and we generally try to leave as quickly as possible.
It's kind of more like a work function. I got to go to a work ball tonight.
Yeah. You talk to the wife, you dance a little bit, and then you leave.
Sounds fun.
Well, so I when I was heavily in the season when I heavily went to those, I didn't drink, and now I realize why people drink, because it just gives you something to do. Because otherwise, you're just like, what am I doing here?
Makes it more enjoyable. You can actually bear it.
Yeah, now I at least have at least one drink and be like, all right, I can do something for a few minutes.
Well, she doesn't have any drinks, but she's bored the whole time until two young men she overhears pronounce her to be pretty. And suddenly, it's a much pleasanter evening than she had thought it would be. Yeah. So she's satisfied with her share of the public attention. And she's out.
That's all she needed.
That's all she needed. So then we go on to chapter 3 and we get to the pump room, which is a big focus of their
pump room,
their daily activities, of their socializing, of meeting new people and seeing desired acquaintances.
So this is what really gave me the beach town tourist trap.
Mm-hmm.
See, she name drops everything. We've got the upper rooms, we've got the lower rooms, we've got the pump room, we've got the crescent, we've got Edwards buildings or something. We've got we've just got all these locations in Bath.
Yeah, the pump room was literally a giant hall or building with a giant hall where they pump in water from the Roman baths or the natural spring waters in the area, and then everyone walks around socializing and drinking mineral water. Or water.
As you said earlier, the world's most boring bar.
Yeah. Everyone is real hydrated. They have to pee all the time, but fully inhibited.
And you know who's there because there's a desk in the front where you sign in. You register when you come in. So...
And it's a thing to go read it.
Yeah.
Let's go look at the entries. Let's go see
who's here.
Yeah.
It's one of those places to be seen. You go there to be seen.
Yeah. Which bars are kind of that way, but they're a little more fun because you can actually drink something other than water. Water comes at the end of the night when you've had too much.
Well, you go to a bar to be seen or to see people because you can drink for a lot cheaper at home.
That's true. It's very true. I haven't had a drink since November 3rd, 2019. Because it's the day I found out I was pregnant. Soon.
There you go.
Soon. 23 more days, at least. Or
Inshallah,
at most.
Inshallah.
All right. So, they go to the grand pump room. Catherine meets Mr. Tilney. Swoon.
Mr. Tilney.
But I love...
Who seemed to be about 4 or 5 and 20.
But I love their interaction. They have the best, ridiculous, comical interaction where they are basically satirizing or making fun of the interaction that they should be having.
Right.
Have you been long in Bath? And she's about a week and they're being really obvious about the fact that here is the conversation that we are supposed to go through as new acquaintances. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Well, he literally says it. I mean, he says, let's do the small talk. He said,
I love it. Yes. That makes small talk so much better.
He says, we are now that we have talked, and he says, we are now at leisure to satisfy me in the particulars, and I'll begin directly. I've been remiss in the proper attentions of a partner. How long have you in Bath? Have you yet honored the upper rooms? Have you been to the theater, the concert, medieval times?
Now I must give one smirk, and then we may be rational again. And they're laughing the whole time, so they're hitting it off. There's some spark here.
Some chemistry. They're both sarcastic and looking at this whole societal dance that people are doing with a jaundiced eye.
I love when he's like, you'll go home tonight and you'll write about me in your journal. And she's like, but perhaps I don't keep a journal. And he's like, perhaps you're not even sitting in this room.
Quite philosophical, are Mr. Tilney.
She does.
Of course
keep
you
a journal.
write in a journal.
Yeah.
Of course you write in a journal. You're a girl in the early 1800s. Come on.
Exactly. And she comes to find out he knows a thing or two about muslins and dresses, and because he's got a sister, and he buys her things and nice things. And so he seems like a good all-around kind of guy at this point, and she's taken with him.
Right. He very easily talks to Mrs. Allen and charms her as well, even though he obviously doesn't think much of sitting around talking about muslin. So
Exactly. All right.
But he has a good eye for it.
And so at the end of the chapter, Catherine might be going home to dream of Mr. Tilney. We're not quite sure, but apparently a girl can't fall in love with a man until he falls in love with her first. Apparently that's how it works, or so says Austen in her quippy way at the end of the chapter.
It's very improper for a young lady to dream of the gentleman before the gentleman has dreamt of the young lady.
How are you supposed to know that?
I guess you have to relay that or write it in your journal and then tell the person that, I had this wonderful dream last night of you.
Or tell another person who might mention it to them.
That's
or mention
actually
it to
the way to do it.
acquaintance that might mention it in the pump room.
Yes.
All right, so she's taken with Mr. Tilney, and now he's going to be her focus for the next whole section. So in chapter 4...
But
what?
Tilney disappears.
Oh, he does. He disappears, and she can't find him.
It's sad.
But Mrs. Allen runs into Mrs. Thorpe, and we get to meet the Thorpes. My favorite thing about this interaction is that Mrs. Thorpe has a bunch of kids. Mrs. Allen does not. Hence the surrogate mom or homely aunt kind of vibe that she's got going on with Catherine.
Right.
Thorpe has much to report on her family and her sons and her daughters. Mrs. Allen doesn't have that, but at least her lace is much better than Mrs. Thorpe's. Screw your kids and all of their accomplishments. Look at my lace.
There's the point where Austen talks about Mrs. Thorpe and Mrs. Allen speaking to each other, and she says, but there was literally no conversation. Like, the one would talk about one thing, the other would say something else, and there was literally nothing going on. They were just basically talking to themselves in each other's presence.
I have been witness to such a thing, and being a third party to two conversations like that is a bit much.
Yeah.
All right. So that's pretty much what happens in chapter 4. We learn about Mrs. Thorpe.
Well, Catherine meets Isabella,
who is Mrs. Thorpe's daughter.
Eldest daughter, I believe.
And
correct?
I think so.
And 4 years older than Catherine. She's so much more worldly and mature.
So much better informed. And
I'm actually quite surprised that being 4 years older than Catherine, Austen isn't calling Isabella an old maid by this point.
That's true. 17.
Because,
she's 20.
I mean, if you're
21.
if you're not married by 21, oh man, you're over the hill.
So, my girl Kat, has a big lady crush on Isabella at first. Probably because she's 4 years older, and she thinks she's so much smarter and better acquainted with the ways of the world and how interactions between men and women go. Catherine's just into her right now. She really wants to be her best friend.
Right.
And they do hit it off.
This is where, me trying to triangulate Catherine and separating Catherine as our heroine out from Austen as our narrator, right? Like, Austen has a very, dour, sarcastic look at this whole thing. But yet Catherine, she wants to be part of this. Mm-hmm. Because her and Isabella hit it off over dresses, balls, flirtations, and quizzes, which is a great term. Reading it through the first time, you're like, They like quizzes, like they're filling out like stuff in Cosmo and like figure, that kind of quiz. No.
Mm-mm. Basically,
she's like roasting people.
Yeah. And to point out a quiz through the thickness of a crowd, basically like spotting the losers in the room. Like, there's one. There's one.
Right.
They're basically making fun of people and people watching.
Right.
Which you
but
also
kind of
do
nastily.
Down the shore. Yeah.
Right.
And they find out that their brothers are friends. James,
yes.
Catherine's brother, and John, Isabella's brother, are buddies. And so there's a connection there that they're excited to meet. Isabella's excited to meet Catherine because she's already heard about Catherine from her brother. They become friends, and then the end of the chapter, Austen says, this brief account of the family is intended to supersede the necessity of a long and minute detail from Mrs. Thorpe herself of her past adventures and sufferings, which might otherwise be expected to occupy 3 or 4 following chapters. So she's calling out other writers who then spend a ridiculous amount of time detailing every single thing about each character and likely getting away from the story, in my opinion.
So this little paragraph does 2 or 3 amazing things. I mean, first of all, it establishes something that I love in this book is Jane Austen breaking the fourth wall and talking directly to us, the readers, throughout this book. She's throwing shade at other authors by saying, hey, normally we'd talk about this for a while. But she's also kind of dragging Mrs. Thorpe, talking about the worthlessness of lords and attorneys, conversations which had passed 20 years before, minutely repeated. I mean, she's going off on all cylinders in this tiny little paragraph.
And she does it more as we go throughout the book, which I love. And that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing that I didn't get when I was younger. I thought that would have been dead serious. Like, oh, okay, so we shouldn't talk about that. Okay, that's what they didn't do that or something.
Right.
So in chapter 5, then, Catherine and Isabella spend a lot of time hanging out. But there's something about, in talking, she's telling her about Mr. Tilney, and they're discussing men in general. And there's something in Isabella's, like, I called it wistfulness in my notes, that Catherine doesn't get, but Austen gets. So there's like something in Isabella's past, I think, or a man that she misses, or, an old flame or something.
Really?
I think so.
See, I didn't pick up on that, so that's interesting. I just saw Isabella as just sort of a simple-minded flirt. Because is this the chapter? No, it's not this one. It's the next chapter. Right, yeah, it's the next chapter. We really see, 6, so we'll talk 5, but 6 really solidified Isabella for me a little bit. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, there's a section of this chapter where Austen comments on how in friendships, Catherine doesn't know this because she's not mature enough in this kind of friendship or this kind of social interaction, but sometimes you have to force a confidence with your friend. Catherine just kind of lets it go. Like, she doesn't...
Like, in order to be a friend, you have to let somebody in, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And push them to do so. Push them to say, like, you hint at... You think they're hinting at, like, oh, well, I hope it's better for you. It's like, yep.
Right.
Catherine's like, yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah, me too.
Where a friend who would force a confidence would be like, well, what do you mean? What happened? What happened to you that you would want it to be better for me? Or, and either Catherine doesn't get it, or Isabella's playing a game where she's like, come on, ask me. Like, I'm baiting you. I'm saying something that is supposed to prompt a question, but without asking you to ask me or just coming out and telling you. So
right. They are getting close. They call each other by their Christian name and they walk arm in arm everywhere. So,
Yeah.
They're pretty tight.
Chapter 6.
Well, we can't leave 5 without talking about, again, the end of 5. Yes. So at the end of 5, Austen, she doesn't just break the fourth wall, man. She smashes it down and goes off on critics and other novelists. Well, not so much other novelists, but critics of novelists at this point.
Yeah, this whole book, most of the book also has this praise for novels and this...
She name drops a bunch.
I love what she says. Her direct comment on novels, she says, in short, only some work in which the greatest powers of the mind are displayed, in which the most thorough knowledge of human nature, the happiest delineation of its varieties, the liveliest effusions of wit and humor are conveyed to the world in the best chosen language. That's what Austen thinks about novels. I do too. So
I'm curious. So in this time, if people weren't reading novels or they were looking down upon novels, what were they reading? Were they just reading
religious
histories,
texts, the Bible? Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Seems rather boring to me, but
novels are relatively new. People said of novels what we now say of like, oh, everybody's on their phone all the time. Like, oh, people are reading novels.
and she really drags people, like where she says, the abilities of other people. A man who collects and publishes in a volume some dozen lines of Milton, Pope, and Prior, with a paper from the Spectator and a chapter from Sterne, are eulogized by 1,000 pens. So, basically it's, if you're a news aggregator, you get all this web traffic, but if you're the one actually writing the articles, nobody reads your articles. But the guy that just brings them all together in one place, oh yeah, he did all the work.
That's what I love about just people who, ever since I was younger, I've always hated like people who lament the next generation or and the new things and the kids these days, because I would always look back and be like, it's exactly the same. It's just a different item. So, you're on your phone or you play video games. Well, it's just this different item than the novels from the 1800s.
You're not listening to that rock and roll music,
It's ridiculous. I once saw, there was a good TED Talk on language about like the growth of like text speak or whatever,
Right.
And it's really just a different way that language is evolving. And he had examples of texts from, I'm going to get it wrong, from a really long time ago, where they were lamenting what was becoming French, about how no one speaks anymore and you can't understand them. And
the French still do that, so they don't change.
I just thought, man, the more people change, the more we don't. It's always the
exactly.
same.
Yeah.
But
it's a way to stay young. Like, my wife, who does not like anything technological, like if you tried to show her Twitter, she would just melt and be like, I don't know what this is. I don't understand any of this.
I constantly ask my husband, I'm like, what is the thing that we're going to suddenly become Luddites about that's going to like scare us because we don't keep up with it? Is it going to be like the holograph projector and we're like, turn that thing off, people can see our house?
TikTok.
Or like, well,
no, it's TikTok.
It's already here.
No, do you know what it is for me, honestly? When I realized this is when I realized I was old, right? Minecraft.
Why Minecraft?
So I've been a gamer since I was like 7, 8 years old. I'm still a gamer, but man, the obsession over I don't get it. I don't get Minecraft. I don't know why that's fun. I don't know why kids enjoy it. Hey man, but you know what? More power to you, man. Go for it. I play what I play. And you play what you play. That's great. But I've tried Minecraft. I'm just like, this is not fun.
Can you build things
I don't want to play this
in Minecraft.
You do. I mean, there's also like an adventure portion to it. There's an actual single player portion. But yeah, it's basically Legos, but it seems very slow to do anything. And I'm like, this is not fun. I don't know.
Huh.
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I mean, I look at what people have built in it, and I'm like, this is incredible. This is awesome stuff. But it's just, it's not for me. It's not my thing.
That's really funny because I mean, if you were a 10-year-old, you would be playing Minecraft like crazy because you are a
probably
gamer. Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
I never got,
but yeah.
like when you would play RPGs, I'm like, this is so boring. Oh my God.
Yeah. I think it was time too. Like I can't, like when I was single and had no kids, I could play a 50-hour JRPG. I can't anymore. Like,
no.
It's like, nah, I ain't got time for this. Give me something I can do in like 10 or 15 minutes. Let me jump into something, and just go and be out of it.
We stay up after Vincent goes to bed and we play Mario or Sega, and we're like, yes, we can play without immediately running into a Goomba every 5 seconds. Or he really likes to die in all the video games. Like he likes to jump down the hole.
Oh, wow.
He likes to get hit by a Goomba. On Sega, he likes to play things like Toe Jam and Earl. You just jump into the water and then the character becomes an angel and floats to the sky. And that's the part he likes.
Fun. That's the fun part. Why not?
Stop it. Anyway.
Okay. We digress.
So, chapter 6. We get a really good dose of Isabella here, I think.
Oh, yes. This chapter. This is a delicious chapter.
So, Isabella has a habit of doing this thing. They meet at the pump room.
Drama. Isabella is all into drama and making you think there's more than there is.
She's a jerk. I wouldn't be her friend. There's no way.
No.
I would not last.
No.
Isabella would be the bane of my existence. But so they met by appointment. So they're like, let's meet at the pump room at this time. Isabella's there.
Right.
5 minutes before Catherine.
5 minutes.
Literal 5 minutes.
Right.
And her first address naturally was, my dearest creature, what can have made you so late? I've been waiting for you at least this age. And Catherine's like, what? You have?
How long have you been here?
I'm sorry.
Oh, 10 ages at least. I'm sure I've been here a half hour.
I would have been like, well, then you were wrong because we were supposed to meet at 9.
We were supposed to meet.
And it's only 9:05.
Exactly. Not that late.
And she's like, oh, well, let's just go sit down. So she brushes it off. And Catherine's probably like, I am so confused. And then she goes on to say what a great friend she is.
Right.
You've thrown me into agonies. This is so horrible. And then they start talking about books. They start talking about Udolpho specifically.
I mean, is this like the first instance of like no spoilers? I mean, they're legit legit talking about it. And she's like, "Don't you want to know?" She's like, "Oh, I don't know. Don't tell me. Don't you dare." I mean, seriously, like. This is like no spoiler culture in the early 1800s.
She's like, I would not tell you what is behind the black veil for all the world. Aren't you wild to know? It's like, please let me tell you. I want to tell you.
Guess what? If you watch the movie, Bruce Willis is actually...
My former boss friend that he listens to the podcast sometimes on his walks too. So I'm going to call you out, John. But he doesn't care about spoilers. And I love his philosophy because he's like, if it's good, it's good. Like, I don't care about spoilers. And at least I think I'm getting the sentiment correctly.
I know people that don't even watch trailers because they want literally nothing spoiled.
What?
Yeah.
You don't even want your interest piqued? You're like, I want to go in blind. Don't even tell me the title. Just turn it on.
Well, I've had friends who literally roll up to the movie theater and are like, man, let me see this one. What's it about? I don't know. Let's go see it. Like, wow, that's brave.
I haven't even seen a movie in the theater. I don't even know the last time I saw a movie in the theater. Oh, yes, I do. It was the Star Wars.
Oh God! Please don't.
Was it Rise of the Jedi?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna be sick. All right, you gotta take this for a few minutes. What? If I think about that movie, I'll throw up. All right. Anyway.
What? The obsessive, his whole entire life, Star Wars fan.
That movie was trash.
Was it?
Oh my! It was trash. I have never been so angry after watching a movie in my life. Susan had to tell me you need to stop talking about this 3 days later.
I believe that.
I was like, no, I was so mad. I was so angry. Oh my Lord.
What?
Anyway, I was shout. I mean, I was like, anyway.
Did you control yourself in the theater at least?
Barely. Literally barely. I had some outbursts. I shouted, not shouted, but I verbally ejaculated to bring it back to H.G. Wells. Yeah, I definitely said a few things in the theater. I was not happy.
Huh.
I was quite glad when that thing ended. I never do this. I legit just in the middle of it was like, I'm going to the bathroom, whatever. I just got up and walked out and went to the bathroom for like 5-10 minutes. It's like, did I miss anything? Nope, whatever.
Was this a family movie night? Were the kids with you? No.
No, it was just me.
Oh, it was you by yourself. Okay.
Yeah, it was just me.
That's the last movie that I saw. And the movie before that was like the first one of that series that I saw like years and years and years. So like I can't imagine just going to a theater and being like, I'm going to see a movie.
No, definitely not.
It also costs 15 guineas to go to a movie these days. So,
well, you just need an unlimited note drawing from your father's banker. Yeah. I mean, come on, an unlimited order. Or whatever.
Oh my God. Our father never had a banker.
No.
Our father's banker. You mean mom? No.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Anyway, okay. So they're talking about Udolpho, which is the novel that they're reading. They're super into it. And Catherine would be happy to just sit at home and finish her book. She said 2 or 3 times, which, yeah, girl, I'm with you.
I'm with you, Catherine. Let's just read.
Stay out of the pump room. You can have a glass of water by yourself while you read.
Yes. Yes.
And she tells her about Mr. Tilney. And Isabella really wants to see him.
Right.
And he's gone, so she can't.
Right.
So what else in this chapter?
Well, the end of the chapter is excellent. The men. So they go down to just read the pump room book, because that's just what you do. And while they do, there's 2 dudes that are eyeing them out of the corner. And the whole time, Isabella's like, they're not looking. Are they? Please tell me they're not looking. Are they gone? Are they gone yet? Oh, this is terrible. This is horrid. And as soon as they leave, all right, let's go follow them.
Yeah.
One was good looking.
I'm not going to look up. They're looking at me, though, right? Right? They're going to.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And Catherine, again, oblivious. She's like, no, they're not. But if we go now.
They left.
If we go now, we're going to see them. We're like, you don't want to see them, right? You just said you didn't want to. We'll just. It's fine. We'll just walk faster.
Exactly. I shall not pay them any such compliment. I have no notion of treating men with such respect. That's the way to spoil them.
Catherine had nothing to oppose against such reasoning. She's like, okay.
Yeah, it's playing a little hard to get here.
So they walked off. And I love how Austen is just real blatant about it. She's like, they walked off in pursuit of the 2 young men. Like, right. Don't even be fooled.
As fast as they could walk.
They're not looking for this stupid hat that she says that they're going to go look at.
Right. In case the subtext, she just brings it to the text.
Yeah. So on their way, the streets are busy. There's lots of stuff going on. They're held up at the corner. And as they are held up, this gig, so I guess a horse and carriage.
Oh, yes, a gig. I had meant to look up the difference between a gig and a caracal.
Please do.
Anyway, you continue, and I will do that real quick.
The ones they run into their brothers. So the brothers are friends. We've got James, Catherine's brother, and John, Isabella's brother. James and John are buddies, and Isabella's brother is a total ass.
Yes.
And Catherine doesn't really like him that much, but she won't say so. But she does agree to go with him to the ball that evening and to dance with him, which makes her pretty happy. She also accidentally agrees to go on an open carriage ride with him to a nearby town. I forgot the name of it. And he's just boasting about his horse, how fast it can run, how much he's going to exercise it, because you don't rest your horse. That makes them lazy and dull. And his horse can't go any slower than 10 miles an hour, and his gig is so great, and he bought it for so much money, and he's just intolerable.
So a gig and a curricle, they are similar. They're very similar conveyances. They're a 2-wheeled cart pulled by a horse. The difference that I'm finding here says the curricle is normally pulled by 2 horses and a gig by just 1. So it's a little bit slower. The gig's a little slower, which is why John is talking about his horse So he's got a gig, a one-horse vehicle.
All right. And he says it's curricle hung. So I wonder if it's one horse pulling a two-wheeled thing.
It could be.
He says...
So the pictures I'm seeing here, maybe the curricle has more of a roof you can pull over and the gig doesn't. So maybe it's hung like a curricle, so it has the roof. I don't know. I mean, I did have that as a note because I'm 12 years old. These are well-hung vehicles.
Oh, God. I thought of it too. So anyway.
There you go.
Then his story of how he got it is a little absurd. He met this guy, but I chanced to meet him on the Magdalen Bridge as he was driving into Oxford. And, Thorpe, do you happen to want such a little thing as this? Like I'm picturing literally driving on the bridge. He's like, do you want to buy this? What I'm currently driving? Yeah. Would you like to buy this?
Take it.
I'm cursed of it. And he said, I am your man. What do you ask? And he asked 50 guineas, and he said, I threw it down. Here
Done.
it is.
It's mine.
Here's your 50 guineas.
So there you go. Curricle hung. Seat, trunk, sword case, splashing board, lamps, silver molding. That's what you got.
A sword case.
So behind the seat, in the pictures I'm looking at, behind the seat, there was like a little, it looks like a little trailer, not a trailer, but a little sticking off the back, a little trunk, a little box sitting behind. You could stick things in.
A sword case. Like, is that like...
Maybe on the side so you can draw it? I don't know.
Is it like a glove box these days? Who puts their gloves in the glove box, but it's still the glove box?
It could be. Do you put a sword in your sword case?
A sword case. Maybe he plays the guitar. That would be an axe case.
Oh, there we go.
That was lame. Anyway. She doesn't...
So the other thing we can kind of point out in this story, because I do love how old books did it. O-D, bunch of dashes, it. So our John Allen is a swearer.
Yeah.
So that it's an indicator there of his personality.
And I totally swore. So I made sure.
Oh, when you were reading it? You didn't say D with a line?
No. I didn't know how to say
D
that.
It.
Oh,
yeah, that's
beep.
True.
Maybe we could beep it? I don't know.
We could beep it out.
Catherine feigns all kind. I don't know if she's feigning ignorance, but she's kind of like, I don't know if it was cheap or expensive. Oh, you're going to tell me? Okay, great.
Yeah.
It's basically what
I don't think
she feels
is.
internally.
I mean, so far, I think Catherine is who she is. Like, she seems pretty straightforward. I don't think she's... Though, I don't know. That is a good question. No. She fooled around with Tilney.
I think you're right, though. I think she's mostly genuine. Austen is having her be really genuine and honest so that we can see more clearly, I think.
Right.
What Austen is presenting to us, which is the ridiculous nature of John Thorpe. Because we do have the asides where she says, Catherine didn't say this, which is what she was feeling, basically, that John is an ass. And she said, he's a delight, or whatever.
Right. So I couldn't quite tell at this first meeting if Catherine was actually taken with John or if she was like, this dude's a bore. Because, I mean, if you think about when you meet somebody, for the first time and they just are telling you about their car and how much it costs, they bought it from this guy. You're like, I know, to me, I would just be like, oh, great. Really, buddy? Sure. You bought the car. That's terrific. I'm glad.
I think she sees through it real quick. I do. Because it says these manners did not please Catherine. But
true.
But he was James's friend and Isabella's brother. And
she sort of plays with him a little bit. Like, he's talking about how far it is between the cities and how far his horse ran. And, I know my horse does 10 miles an hour, which I guess pulling a gig is probably too fast. Like, it's not really going to go that fast. And he said, and he says, I'll drive you tomorrow. And she says, but your horse should rest, right? And he's like, rest? No, he only ran 3:20 today. Nonsense. I exercise mine 4 hours a day while I'm here. And she just goes, oh, shall you? Well, that'll be 40 miles a day, right? And he doesn't get it. Like, she's like, you're an idiot. And he goes, yes, 40, 50. What do I care? Let's go.
He's not even listening. He's not connecting.
No, he's not.
Which brings us to the Udolpho conversation, which she said, she's taken with it. And she's like, have you ever read Udolpho? He's like, oh, Lord, no. I never read novels.
Ugh.
I've got something
which
else
is
to
strange. because his personality, you would think he would be reading the most insipid things, right? Because he's sort of a, uncouth, low-class character, right? I would think he'd be reading nothingness, but I guess novels were still too highbrow back then.
Well, no, they're not. They're low. They're too lowbrow. They're all full of. He says they're full of nonsense and stuff. There hasn't been a decent, tolerable one out since Tom Jones, except The Monk. I read that the other day. But the other ones, they're the stupidest things in creation.
Right. Novels are stupid. Except for that one I just read. Yeah. It was a good one.
And the ones
exactly.
And the ones by Mrs. Radcliffe, they're amusing.
Right.
Those are good books.
They're good.
And she's like, Udolpho was written by Mrs. Radcliffe. He's like,
yeah.
No, was it? Oh, yeah. I remember.
Yeah, I remember. That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
I'm thinking of that other stupid book written by that woman they make such a fuss about. She married a French immigrant. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's very slick recovery, John. Yeah.
Yeah, another stupid book, but he doesn't say this, but I parenthetically write that other stupid woman. Like, I feel like that's what he really meant.
It probably was, yeah.
Such unnatural stuff. So it says to critique the justness of which was unfortunately lost upon poor Catherine, which I don't think she appreciates this at all. And that seals it because she loves this book. She's so taken with it. And he, first of all, insults it. Second of all, doesn't know what he's talking about. So not only is he rude, but he's an idiot as well. So she's not pleased with him at all.
And yet
she agrees to dance with him at the ball.
She does.
Because being asked to go to the dance, basically, is better than going to the dance having not been asked.
Right. And just hoping somebody wants to dance with you.
She doesn't want to end up a wallflower or whatnot. And she's real dramatic about not being, well, in chapter 8, he doesn't show up right away. And she's left waiting for him at the dance.
Right.
And it's humiliating
Unfortunately.
To her.
Oh, and Catherine, who says, I will never leave your side. You're my dearest friend.
Yeah.
Or Isabella, I'll never leave your side, dear Catherine. I love you. I love you. Oh, yeah, your brother wants to go dance, so I'm out.
Yeah, I think
like within minutes.
Literally 3 minutes later. I will never leave you. I assure you, I would not stand with the kindness and gratitude that I'm not gonna leave you. Like your best friend. Like let's go. Like you. I know they both got asked to the dance, but I picture it as like, all right, nobody asked us. We're gonna chill. We're gonna hang out.
Right.
And as soon as you get there, some guy's like, hey, you want to dance?
It's like, yeah, sorry, I'm out.
And then she's gone, and she can't find her the rest of the evening.
Right. Which, reading this, like these rooms have to be just massive and just packed with people.
Yeah.
I think the first ball in the book, it talks about how they have to like fight through the way, push their way through the crowds. Like, yeah, these don't sound like fun to me.
Again, you think like back before coronavirus days, before you had to be 6 feet apart.
Gosh.
You think of a packed boardwalk in the height of the summer season. You can't find anybody. I get anxious. Too many people around me like that. I don't enjoy being like shoulder to shoulder and like chest to back with people when I'm supposed to be enjoying myself.
No. So I've taken I took my daughter to a concert when she was 4, I want to say. And yeah, it was, getting in and out of the venue. I was like gripping her hand, like terrified. I was like, do not let go of me,
That makes me like anxious just hearing about it.
Yeah.
I don't like large crowds like that, but that's what this place looks like. So she can't find Isabella later on. And John's
nowhere around.
And dun dun dun, Mr. Tilney shows up.
Tilney shows
and
up.
asks her to dance. And she has to say no, which I think is crap.
I just got into Bath this morning. Boy, are my arms tired.
He might say that. He might be the kind of person to say that, and she would laugh.
He probably would. If they knew what airplanes were back then.
But the fact that She has someone to dance with, but he's not there. Makes it look like she doesn't have anyone to dance with. And she describes it as being disgraced in the eye of the world, to wear the appearance of infamy while all her heart is purity. The true source of her debasement. Debasement, because she doesn't have anyone to dance with.
And she couldn't dance with Tilney because she's already got a slot on her dance card filled with Thorpe. So if she did dance with Tilney, that would be the height of, oh my goodness, she danced with someone after someone already had brought her. Oh,
it would be terrible.
She's
fully humiliated. And then, John shows up.
He comes back.
And she has to dance with him.
And he was talking to somebody about some dogs, man, and he's got to tell her all about them. And
it's like the most boring thing she could possibly think of.
Right.
She does see on Mr. Tilney's arm a young girl who she's like, that's the sister. I know it. He's not married. He didn't say he was married. He didn't act like he was married. So it's definitely his sister. And she decides, I need to be friends with her. We need to be closer so that I can basically get close to her brother, which, whatever. It's a fine idea, I suppose. But she doesn't get as close to Miss Tilney as she would like because she's got to go dance with John, and then they're talking to other people. Then Mr. Tilney gets another partner, and she's lost her chance. And it's also very disappointing to our girl Kat. It's pretty much the end of 8. I mean, what's her name? Isabella comes back.
Isabella, who I'm going to say two things about my guy here. I always love the minor Austen characters, if you watch the BBC Pride and Prejudice, there's the capital guy who just, his only line through the whole thing is like, ooh, capital, capital. I love him so much. Anyway, so that's what I'm picturing for Mr. Allen. So Mr. Allen does two things, one which I love and one which I'm like, oh, this is this book, right? This is the 1800s. So Mr. Allen, who is, what would you say Mr. Allen is, like 50s, 60s?
Sure.
Like the Allens, probably, right? They're like the elder couple. So the first ball back in, chapter 2 or 3, they get to the ball. Immediately, he's off to the card room, baby. He just goes and plays cards all night. And I'm like, this is my boy, Mr. Allen. You ladies can dance. I'm going to go play cards. And then when he comes back, he's like, oh, wonderful ball. It was great. And then at the end here in chapter 8, Catherine is talking to the Allens about her friend Isabella. And, Mr. Allen they say that Mr. Allen thinks her the prettiest girl in Bath. And I'm just like, ew. You got this like 60-year-old dude skeeving on all the 20-somethings in Bath. Like, oh, yeah, that Isabella Thorpe. There you go.
Well, maybe he thinks of her as a child. He's like, oh, isn't she an adorable child?
Perhaps. I mean, heck, they're scoping out how Catherine was looking at 10, so why not? It's just all part of the thing.
And speaking of Isabella, when she shows back up, she again is like, why didn't you come find me? It's all Catherine's fault that they're not together. Well, the while she's been dancing with James, who she clearly likes. But he asks her to dance again, and she's like, oh, I couldn't. We would be the talk of the pump room if we danced again. And he's like, no, I don't know. Like, it's okay. Yeah. And she's like, yes. No, Catherine, tell him we couldn't possibly, right? Tell him it would be a shock to you to see this. And she's like, no, it wouldn't. Like, but if you think it's wrong, then you go ahead, dance with someone else. And she's like, there, you see, you hear what your sister said? It's like,
right.
What?
And then, by the way, Catherine, let's go walk around and make fun of people. We'll do some quizzing.
Yeah, that's what John wants to do. And she's like,
I'll show you the greatest quizzers, my two younger sisters and their partners. I've been laughing at them this half hour. She's just there making fun of people. Like, wow, you're great, Kat. You're great, Isabella.
She's like, no. Our 2 dances are over. See ya. Done. And he's like, fine, I'll go make fun of my sisters by myself. But like, what a loser. In one of the earlier chapters, I don't remember which one it is, but for some reason I can't. Isabella is like, what kind of men do you like?
Yes.
complexion-wise. And it's like, what? That's a weird
like
thing to talk about.
Yeah, it's the end of 6 or 7. Because they're talking about Tilney, like what he looks like.
Yeah.
Mr. Tilney, a brown skin with dark eyes and rather dark hair. Well, my taste is different. I prefer light eyes. And as to complexion, do you know, I like a sallow better than any other. A sallow complexion?
Someone who
that
looks
like
ill, basically.
I was going to say, is that like a sickly?
And...
That's like a yellowy kind of... Well, these are pasty British men, so I guess that's
is
what
why
you
I
get to
think
choose
there's
from.
somebody. There's somebody very specific. And she's like, if you ever see a sallow gentleman, like, you gotta let me know. You see a sickly man walking around, that's my boo. Like, I think that's...
Yeah, you're right, because she says, if you ever meet one of your acquaintances answering that description, betray you, what do you mean? Oh, don't distress me, I've said too much. Let's drop the subject.
Yeah, and Catherine does.
She's
like, okay, cool.
Okay. So,
Let's drop it instead of pressing her farther.
Hey, if you ever see a dude with sallow skin and light eyes, like, what? Like, we're in England. That's like everyone. That's not much of a description.
I don't know if that's fair or not, but it's funny. And that brings us to the end of our first reading.
Yes.
Which, like, not a lot happens. Like, certainly not like Moreau, where people are dying and shooting and busting up boats and getting drunk and there's vivisection. Like, this is just, we went to a ball and we're chatting. But the social interaction.
We went to a second ball and we're chatting.
It's so good. I feel like you learn so much about, like, you don't have to be a part of the cringeworthy conversation. You get to watch it from the outside, which is so much better than being in it.
Exactly.
And then you can, as the reader, you can judge it and you can, comment on it. And I think readers learn so much. Like, you can tell Isabella's a bad friend. And you might have a bad friend that you don't recognize that. But once you do, you're like, oh, shit, I'm friends with an Isabella.
Yeah. And you get so much commentary on what British society was like, at least for this. Yeah, they're not super wealthy, but they're at least middle class. I mean, they're doing all right, right?
I mean,
they're no,
our parents could never send us on vacation, let alone vacation with $1,000 just for ourselves.
$1,000. This is true. This is true.
But that might not be uncommon.
And we certainly weren't going to a tourist town for months at a time and renting an apartment there like they are,
No. That's basically like a snowbird kind of thing. Like, you go to Florida for the winter, and then you come back up to New York for the summer or something.
Right.
But it's basically...
Which a lot of people do. So this is that sort of class that we're talking about in the British society. People that can afford to go to Bath. These aren't a chimney swipes that just work, and we're going to Bath for the summer,
And I suspect it's very much like men of working age come and go, but the women stay and the older couples stay. And the like 20-somethings who are getting, or maybe like the late teens, like they're not quite involved in a profession quite yet, like James and John. Are they at school?
They're at Oxford. Yeah, they're at Oxford.
So they're there. But like the 40-something-year-old dads, they go back and forth and probably go home for the week to work and maybe come on the weekend or something.
Well, Tilney has a job, right? Tilney's a clergyman. He's not in school.
Right.
And he left for the week.
And now he's back.
Right?
Yeah.
Now he's back.
I'm really enjoying this novel.
Yes, it is quite. I mean, we said we were swinging for the fences here. I mean, Jane Austen is kind of the GOAT for a reason, so they're good. I like talking about it, and I think it's hilarious. I can see why there's a Jane Austen Society. I'm sure whoever's in the Jane Austen Society I bet they're witty and quippy, and they see the satire and sarcasm in life. I'd have a drink with some people in the Jane Austen Society, if given the chance. Yeah.
Stroll around
the only thing I keep thinking of with that is, they sort of romanticize this period. I just want to remind everyone that personal hygiene and nutrition and just general overall health were bad. So as nice as the BBC recreations look, and you're like, oh, it'd be so wonderful to go. Nah, these balls, those people stank. It's hot. There's no air conditioning. It's just sweat and body odor and perfume, and it's gross, I bet, really. They didn't have flush toilets. I mean, they're using the chamber pot in the middle of the ball. Yeah, it's not good.
Well, on that note, now that you can smell the ball.
Right.
I guess, how hot does it get in Bath in the summer, I wonder?
That's a good question. So we should have done some more research before.
Because if they're in this, no matter how hot it gets, they're in this grand room, no air conditioning, I'm sure there are some windows open.
In June, see, this is why Bath is the summer destination. The highs in June in Bath, 67.
Oh, nice.
71 in July, 70 in August. Yeah.
Still going to be hot in that room, though.
About 8 or 9 days. I don't know if the humidity is. Let me see if there's a humidity chart.
Still going to be hot.
It rains a bunch.
I mean, it's packed in with all those people.
Well, in the balls, it's going to be kind of nasty, probably.
And it's not like they're walking up and
cool
down
by the evening
in their like summer sundresses.
No, you're correct.
They're well concealed.
Layers.
Layer upon layer.
Layers of underwear and pantaloons and whatever else they wear. It's a lot of stuff.
All right, so smelly ball, bad friends.
Yes.
But potential love connection after a few bad dates with John.
All right, so what are we going to find tomorrow in our feed? It is going to be chapters 9 through 13 is going to be our next episode. And we are going to get more into the story, I assume. That's my expectation. Like, we've kind of set the stage, right? We kind of know our major players. Mm-hmm. Something's going to happen, right? Like, I think you're hinting something in Isabella's past. We got to have some conflict somewhere. Yeah, we got to have some conflict. And then we'll see where, Catherine and Tilney end up together by the end. Is there going to be a rival suitor for Catherine's affections?
Will we meet the sallow man?
My money's not on John Thorpe, but, we'll see. Maybe he has a turnaround. Woos her with money. Money is always a consideration in marriages in this day. So, a clergyman, I guess, does all right, but, John Thorpe's throwing down $5-6 at a whim to buy a gig. So
Catherine's our heroine, though. She would rise above such a thing. We'll see.
Yes, but there may be those considerations. You know what I mean? Like, she might go through those deliberations. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe they'll give away spoiler for Udolpho.
Oh, perhaps. Which, as we kind of discussed offline, down the road, I wouldn't do it next, but Radcliffe and Udolpho, I guess, is her major work, but she's cited as a major influence on Poe and all these other sort of Gothic horror writers that kind of came along in the mid to later 1800s. Yeah. So that might be a fun one to do as well, just to see what is old Catherine reading during this time.
Poe is my man in my goth phase. For sure.
I think that's kind of typical, wouldn't it be?
Yeah. I mean, it's also really good, but also...
Yes.
All right.
And isn't he, still alive? Like,
oh, yeah.
He visits his grave every year or something like that? Is that how it goes?
He's alive and well.
Someone visits his grave on his birthday, or I forget what it is with Poe.
That's really sad, though.
Anyway.
Like, if you're dead, your afterlife, you're like, I'm going to come back, hang out by my own grave on my birthday. See if anybody's here. Cake?
Did anybody buy me a gift? Oh, anyway.
Just like
they named a whole football team after him, so I think he should be happy about it. Well, hey, this has been Classics You Slept Through. I think you can tell we had a little fun with this one. This was a good one. This was enjoyable. So if you dig what we're doing, why don't you head over to Apple Podcast, iTunes, and leave us a rating or review, a 5-star rating, if you will. That'll help people find this podcast, move us up the charts a little bit. You can also hit us up on our social accounts at CYSTpod. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can email us, cystpod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. See how you enjoying Northanger Abbey. Would you hang out at one of these balls? Are you going to dance with John Thorpe? You got to dance with the one that brung you, right? So
Put a flask in your skirt so you could drink something other than water.
exactly. So anyway, there is a dance this Friday, and we're all just going to stand up, boys on one side of the hall, girls on the other side of the gym, and nobody's going to move. So at least these dances are a little more interesting.
Hey, Macarena.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Bye.